What's the quickest time where you hired and then fired an employee?
I might get canceled for this. We had this employee that was non-binary.
Automations all day.
If I was just a little bit more cutthroat to be all right, we're going to replace half of you with software, goodbye. Automation is quicker, it's more accurate, it's better at doing it, it doesn't need meal breaks.
Do you think AI could ever replace lawyers?
I don't think an AI is ever go to court and present a case in front of a jury. I think an AI could absolutely replace it.
How often do you see yourself focusing on your business versus in your business?
The majority of my time is probably spent on
Attorney Jeff from the JLF firm. Thanks for joining, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Jeff runs a multi seven-figure PI practice. Serves his clients very well, very diligently, and a lot of uniqueness that I've noticed comparing your practice to others, that and how you operate your practice, that would love some insight from you. I know that you're one of the great examples of a ground up, started with almost nothing, success story, and I kind of want to take a step back and kind of go back to that journey. Is there one thing that you could share that maybe you would have done differently?
Oh man. One thing that I would have done differently, I don't know. It's hard to look back and say, I would have done this differently. I probably would have started paid digital advertising earlier on. Maybe that's one thing that I would have done differently. We did a little bit more, like radio, newspaper, magazines, things like that. And it worked decent for us. But looking back, I think I probably should have just jumped into digital instead of that stuff at the time.
Why is that? I mean, if I could, to someone who just hears that, and you were very successful in not going that route, do you think for you is more of a luck of the draw, or why do you feel like you'd want to go into paid ads more?
I think paid ads are just easier to scale because, radio ads, like you buy ads on a station, and it's very tough to, if you need to buy a second station, you're paying a significant amount. You can't just be like, oh, I'm going to raise my budget by 10%. Sure. Jumping on second station is usually doubling your budget. And then you jump to another station, you're doubling your budget again.
Right.
So
There's
it's
no scale there.
Yeah. So it's hard to scale that incrementally.
Right. It's super interesting. So how did you, if we can continue to focus on, kind of your journey, you didn't focus more on paid ads. What was it that kind of got your feet wet? Was it just lucky that you got a couple great cases that allowed you to continue, or was there something for you that allowed you to separate yourself a little bit that...
So I think there was some luck involved. I mean, we got very lucky with the area that we're in. Our office is in Downey. It's extremely underserved. It's also very densely populated. So our SEO campaign, works very well there. We get a lot of local cases. And a lot of these people, travel long distances from work. They'll get into, decently bad accidents. So I don't want to say there's been a specific case that's really put us on the map, but just being in that area, not having a lot of other attorneys in that area, we've been able to service the local community and do very well doing that.
It's very interesting you say that. So fast forward a few years, do you feel like Downey is still at that level of underserved for lawyers, or do you feel like it's already saturated now?
No. I mean, I think it's still pretty underserved. I see more people trying to move into the market and the cities around it, but it's still, relatively underserved. I mean, you go to downtown LA, you throw a rock, you're going to hit 6 attorneys,
Forget about it.
Yeah, Downey, it's not like that.
Right. Very interesting. Are there, seeing that success that you got with that SEO and the location, was there ever a time where you wanted to branch out and maybe find other markets that are underserved and focus on getting a piece of market share there?
Yeah, and we have been doing that. I mean, we branch out to other markets that we feel are underserved. We've established offices. We run marketing campaigns. We do, the Google kind of SEO stuff, but it's getting much more competitive. And I think Google is also looking at it and saying, hey, a lot of people are getting a lot of cases from this. Why don't we drop this down in the results and push up the paid results so we can capture more of that traffic with the stuff that we're making a lot of money on?
That's a good point. I think it's a recent shift from Google that started doing that, from what I understand. I mean, I'm not the expert here, but from what I understand, Google started really shifting towards, hey, let us prioritize the people who are paying us
Yeah.
versus organic marketing as much. And so maybe that kind of ties back to what you were suggesting is, hey, you got to get into it sooner than later because you're not going to get prioritized.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Because, like, when I started, it used to be, two text ads, and then it would show the map pack with, all the local lawyers and their reviews. Now it's like 2 to 4 text ads, and then, like, the local service ads, and then the map pack has an advertisement in it.
Oh
And
yeah.
it just, they have to go through so many ads before they get to you. It's really starting to cut down on that organic traffic. It's still there, but it's not where it used to be. And I think that's because Google's looking at it and be like, hey, we can make, double the money by showing double the ads.
It's very interesting. Yeah, I think you're really right on it. And to the extent you have a success story with the paid ads, and then you could scale that,
Yeah.
it's just a game changer. And then it's really just hit the ground running and just reinvesting and continuing to improve your ops and tweaking and improving through there. So I think I totally agree with you with that aspect. Look, organic marketing and putting yourself out there is gonna work. It's not like it's not gonna work. I mean, the time will tell and it'll work.
Yeah.
But to the extent you want to take the next step, I don't know if I could see many successful PI firms or anything these days without paid ads. So it's very interesting that you said
Yeah.
that.
No, 100%. I think every day, it just gets more and more true because these platforms, just keep pushing more advertisements, more advertisements, more advertisements. I'm on TikTok a lot, just like watching TikToks and stuff. I remember during the pandemic, it's like I never saw an ad in my life. And now it's like every fourth TikTok I see is an advertisement.
Right. Yeah. And I've seen with TikTok, from what I understand, is it's one of the best platforms to get a lot of impressions very quickly
Oh, yeah.
by being a nobody.
Yeah.
You could maybe invest. Their algorithms are like that, where it allows for someone who doesn't have much of a following to be able to get quite a few impressions. Have you dabbled into the TikTok space for your ads?
Not for ads specifically. That's probably the next thing we do. We posted some like organic content, and yeah, I mean, some of these videos get, a ton of views. I mean, we have one that got like 2 million views, and it's like not even that related to our practice area. It was just something that I thought was interesting, and, filmed a TikTok and like put it up there. But, that video blew up. So it's, yeah, very easy for someone who's never put any content out there to get a ton of views on something that a lot of people just find interesting.
Interesting. So, I mean, now that you kind of know where you're at, are you shifting gears and are you starting to invest more in ads and paid ads and stuff more at your firm?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we're trying to, build out like an in-house paid advertisement team.
Got it. Any any reason why you wouldn't just go out to the specialists in this space and kind of engage a third party firm?
I mean, one, I don't want to be, like the 200th client that this firm has. Also, like the idea of having somebody in-house that this is their only focus is our business and getting more leads for our business. I also like the idea of, kind of understanding what these companies do and trying to build that out, ourselves. Because I think we know our business a lot better than these companies do. They might know the broad strokes, but they don't know the details. On top of that, also, I've noticed, we've worked with some of these companies, and if you cut ties, they'll usually take all the data with them when you cut ties with them. You'll run ads with them for a couple months. You're like, oh, this isn't working. And they're like, okay, cool. We're going to cut a tie with this company. And all that data is gone. And now you have to start fresh with the next company and the next company and the next company. If we do it in house, we own the data. We own all the clients. We own everything that we've produced. So we can look back at that and be like, okay, this worked in the past. This didn't work, and use that to kind of analyze and build campaigns.
I hear you. I mean, to the extent you can achieve that I don't disagree that that's probably the best case scenario. But I'll be real, Jeff. The reality is, I mean, personally in my business as well, I don't have the freaking time to build an in-house advertising
Yeah.
firm, right? So, I rely on these third parties, and one of the other reasons is I don't have the skill sets that they do. I know that you're saying you don't want to be, the 200th client, and I resonate with that 100%. But to the extent I could find a provider that's trusted, that, it may be ideally through a recommendation of someone that I trust, that has a good track record, I feel like I rather the, give the ads and the ownership of the paid ad campaigns to the third party who does this for a living. And so I wonder if really I don't see myself personally as an example being able to go out there and do that on my own. I've had thankfully a lot of success with the third parties, being able to take ownership of my ads, incentivize them so that if the campaigns do well, they do well. Of course, we do well. That's the goal.
Sure.
So I don't see a disadvantage to the extent I could achieve that. Is there something more that you think maybe you causes you to hesitate a little bit more beyond that?
Maybe I just like the whole vertical integration
Mm-hmm.
of knowing, exactly what's happening in every part of the company. And I also like kind of expanding to new areas, learning new skills, figuring out, okay, this is how they do this. This is how they do that. Cause I mean, there's one time when there's marketing companies, they didn't know how to market. These people all started somewhere. I got through law school. I think I can learn how to run some Google ads.
I hear you. And I actually respect you for having that mentality, and it's a very good, very entrepreneurial mentality where you kind of, first, I kind of share the same sentiment, but my direction is kind of a little bit different in that I want to know exactly what my providers are doing, and I try to even replicate it for myself. But to the extent I want to scale it and rely on some other person to achieve it, I'm happy to delegate that out,
Yeah.
even outside of my firm, as long as I have relationships. So I think we're talking the same, but it may be a little bit different in that, like for me, it's all about the relationship,
Sure.
right? If my third party, I have a good relationship, trusted, there's no issues, I think it's all working. And so maybe for you, because you like to do stuff and achieve certain things, and you've had some tremendous success building certain things in house that otherwise that I've seen other firms doing, outsourcing for, or getting certain service providers for, you rather maybe do it in house and learn it, and you appreciate that journey of failure sometimes and learning from those failures.
Yeah, that. And also, I mean, looking forward, like let's say you hire a third party company, you start scaling and you're spending, $500,000 a year, or I'm sorry, $500,000 a month on ads with this company, then the relationship sours, you lose all that data, everything that you've built for years and years with this company. Then you have to jump to someone new, start fresh again, versus if it's in house, that's yours forever.
Right. I mean, I do know that there are organizations. The organization I work with, eCustom Solutions, is an example. The data that they have, they contractually is my data.
Huh.
So basically, they basically act like my employee, but they're third
Sure.
party, and they customize my campaigns. Everything's mine. It's under mine, like my usernames, everything, and the Google ads and everything. They just come in and do the work. And
Interesting.
that's kind of the relationship that I have. So I think it really just depends on the nature of the
Yeah.
relationship as well. But going back to just you being able to really take on new things and not being scared to get on it, like for me, yeah, Google Ads doesn't seem like the most difficult thing, but I'm a freaking accountant. I'm sitting over here doing all kinds of, you know, brushing up on the tax code and making sure I'm serving my clients from a compliance side, helping them save a ton of money on taxes. I feel like my time is best served there versus spending my time overseeing my Google ad campaign. I may be wrong, because ultimately, to the extent I'm spending a ton of money on ads, the ad value there can be different for me, and the ROI I can get if I were to spend more time on Google ads. But thankfully, I mean, I'm happy with that relationship, and it's working smoothly.
Yeah.
But I get your point, particularly in your industry, because you have a business where you if you are going the paid ads route, you're looking at potentially your ad cost being almost about 50% of your, and this is what I've seen, 50% of earnings are spent on ads.
Yeah.
And so if you're able to control that operation, I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I get it. Thankfully, I don't spend that much in advertising to have to worry about it on a grand scheme of things. But yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. And I'm sure a lot of other, um, stakeholders feel the same way.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's different, different approaches. I don't think you can go wrong either way. I just feel like it's what's right for us is to build this internally, have a team that works on it and just kind of, release it to that internal team. Be like, you guys work on it. This is what we want. This is how many cases. This is cost per case, and just let them run that, maybe do a meeting with them once a month. But eventually I don't think it's going to take a lot of my time. Right now at the building stage and figuring out how everything works, like, yeah, it's going to take a lot of time, but I feel like, a few months I'll have a good handle on it, and I could just hand it off to somebody, tell them these are the goals. This is how you achieve it, and just let them run through it.
Yeah, no, that it's a fun journey. You have to really like to do it.
Yeah.
And it's part of that change and building and thing. That's a very exciting part of the journey. There are certain entrepreneurs who just choose to delegate it. You seem, Jeff, to be someone that's all about building your own structures, like you said, vertically integrating and being able to kind of scale from what you've built. I love that. That's very cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, the build then delegate,
Yeah.
I think that's a good way. Figure out how to do it yourself, then, make some SOPs, make some structure, and then delegate it to some people.
How often do you see yourself, focusing on your business versus in your business?
Oh man. That's a good question. I would say the majority of my time is probably spent on versus in.
That's great.
But there are situations where, I had to spend some time in, for like the next week, I probably have like depositions almost every day. So that'll be, a week that I'm like mostly in the business. But then, once those kind of clear through, then I'll have a little bit of breathing room and, go back to working on. But every once in a while, I'll have to jump in and, do some moving.
Sure. Do you have many like referral relationships with the other attorneys?
Not really. I mean, most of our cases are homegrown.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple of relationships with other attorneys, but not a lot.
Is that intentional? Do lawyers like piss you off or what?
No. No. I mean, honestly, we've always just kind of homegrown our cases. We do have actually like a firm objective to get more referral cases in the door. But it's just something that, we never focused on. I don't know why.
I get it.
It was never a conscious choice. It just kind of happened.
Yeah. I mean, and at some point, if you have your own operation, sometimes when you're, with referral relationships and having to share fees, sometimes it may not be worth it for you either.
Yeah. With smaller cases, it's not worth it. But with the larger cases, I think it definitely is worth it. And I think it is something that, I do want to develop. I've just neglected it for whatever reason.
Got it. Do you network a lot with other attorneys still and like kind of like pick each other's brain? Like how do you kind of learn new things and new tools and stuff?
Yeah, a ton. I mean, I love networking with other attorneys. I love going to conferences, taking courses, just calling other attorneys and be like, how do you deal with this problem? Like I'm getting some pushback. What do you do? Or what do you think the best move is here?
Yeah. Do you have any of those cases that like you were kind of more invested than just like, hey, let me just try to get a max settlement for my client, like more than just, the business? It kind of got a little personal or emotional that you could share?
Yeah, I mean, I got a case right now against Home Depot. It is just so goddamn personal. I'm like, I fucking hate Home Depot now. Going to Lowe's. Like,
what happened? Can you share some details? Or
so this guy had a slip and fall at Home Depot. He fell outside of Home Depot and he ended up getting a total knee replacement. And you just look at these photos and I'm like, it's just, I would never wish this surgery on, my worst enemy. I mean, it looks like they put like a 12-inch zipper on his knee. And Home Depot, hired this counsel that has just been so obstructionist, just so difficult to work with. And I want to say, probably like 95, 98% of the time, we have a good working relationship with opposing counsel. This is not that situation. I mean, every single thing is just such a fight, so hard, pulling teeth. Like, we had to go into court to compel this, compel that, and then in some cases we'll compel things. The court gives an order that they need to produce this person from deposition, and they're still like, we're not producing that person. And I'm like, this is just insane.
Is there like a disputed liability issue still in the case?
They are disputing liability, which, in slip and falls, I mean, almost every case is disputed liability. But just the fact that they're, not producing any witnesses for deposition, refusing to produce any documents, refusing to participate in the litigation process. I mean, they're just sandbagging us. And just every single thing, we had to go into court and tell the judge, force him to do this, force him to do that, force him to do that. And the judge is getting pissed off because he's like, it's a simple slip and fall case. Like, why can't you guys just, work this out? Like, why does everything need to come in here and file a motion?
Yeah, that's so frustrating. What do you think the solution and outcome would be with this one?
I mean, it's coming up for trial. I think they're going to cave in before trial, but it's just, they took a case that should have been, maybe a 5 out of 10 on the work scale, and they made a fucking 12 out of 10. Like, it's just off the charts,
Yeah.
And I think that's probably, their marching orders. Like, the attorney that's working on the case isn't a very old or seasoned attorney, so I don't think that they've thought this up on their own. I think somebody probably up top is just telling them, like, don't give them anything, fight them on everything, say no, because it's like some things, like the court will say, we order that this witness be produced by this date, and we'll call the attorney, hey, are you producing this? No, I'm not. I'm like, we have a court order right here. Oh, well, I disagree. The court misunderstood what the motion was. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, this is just wild.
So you're saying that you think this is just a tactic for Home Depot to prevent any future like cases to be filed against them in this situation? Is that what they do, to say, oh, these guys are headaches? Like, for instance, if you get another Home Depot case, you're going to sue them?
Yeah, no, I think that is part of it. I think that they do this to make it very, very difficult. So if somebody gets a case against them, they look at it and they have to really be, 100% in on that case to go up against them. We're not going to take a case that we're like, well, the facts are a little bit sketchy and, we're not sure, like, it better be a good case if we're going up against them. And this case, I think, is good. I think it has a lot of merit. I think this guy sustained a real life-altering injury. So, if we have to take it to the box, we'll take it to the box. But I think that this is their tactic.
Got it. Taking a step back here, I think it's a good time for our audience to really understand. I think a lot of people have similar situations. I don't know how bad the injuries are. Sometimes I've had situations where I've been, I took a fall at a store and I felt like I was fine, and then I came home and a day later I was dying of pain or for whatever reason. If we could take a step back and you could help educate us, how does one know whether they have a PI case that they need to speak to an attorney for or not?
Yeah, so I would say, anything that causes an injury to you, speak to an attorney about it. You fall wherever it is, at your apartment, at a business, you get in a car accident, anything that injures you, talk to an attorney, because you never know. There's some cases where you look at it and you go, oh, there might not be a case here. You as a, layperson looks at that, but an attorney might look at it and be, no, like, this is a great case. We can definitely get you significant compensation for this.
Got it. So I think it's to your point, if we're talking about quote unquote what constitutes a great case, for you the first thing is, are you injured? How injured are you, right? Is that what you look at?
Yeah, the extent of the injuries are one factor. The insurance or collectability of the defendant is the second factor. And the third factor is the liability. Did this person actually do anything wrong? So if you have all three of those factors and all three of those factors look strong, that's a great case.
Got it. So assuming that, now shifting gears, and I know you don't do, you're not a defense attorney, but you probably deal with them all the time.
Sure.
as a business owner, what can you do, like to the extent you have a store or anything like that, to prevent major claims against you?
So stores, I mean, you should have, consistent sweeps, consistent inspections. If you have anywhere, let's say you have like a store that has produce, if you're watering that produce, you should put down any kind of mats, carpets, any kind of non-slip material. There's also, I mean, workers' comp claims that your employees can bring against you. Those, there's really very little ways to defend against them. The workers' comp laws are pretty strict in California. If an employee is injured and that injury is 1% related to their job, they have to pay 100% of the medical care for that case. So
Wow.
on the work comp side, yeah, I mean, it's a lot stricter. On PI, there's this whole liability. Did the store do anything wrong? Did the store try to prevent this? Work comp, no. If they get injured on the job, it's 1% related, they're 100% liable.
So you rarely see a disputed liability for in a work comp case, you're saying?
Yeah, in work comp, it's almost impossible. I mean, the only ways you can dispute liability is one, just fraud. This person wasn't injured, they're making it up. Or two, there's a post termination defense. So if somebody gets terminated from their employment and then they bring a workers' comp claim, that's considered a defense. I think because the law looks at that a little bit sketchy, like the employee is trying to retaliate against their employer for terminating them. But outside of those two, there's barely any other defenses that you can bring.
Yeah. So going back to the employee. So, how long? Let me ask you this: what's the quickest time frame where you hired and then fired an employee immediately?
Oh man, that's a good question. I would probably say few months.
A few months.
Yeah.
Okay. So you give them. You're a nice employer. You give them some time to like.
Yeah, I don't think that there was anyone that I fired, within 30 days. I feel like the most, 60, 90 days is probably the quickest that I've ever, axed someone.
I've heard some horror stories with employees and such. Are there any that
Oh man,
that you've
there's
dealt with that you could share some stories?
Yeah, I mean
'Cause I'll tell you before you say it, you're not alone. So there's a lot. There's a lot.
I might get canceled for this, but we had this employee that was non-binary,
Okay.
and I don't know if we should keep this part in, but anyways, she was cool. We hired her. She worked at another big PI firm. She was doing intake. She was great at doing intake, and for the first couple months, like real great employee. She was signing up cases left and right, very aggressive, very quick, and then she started to do like weird things. First, she started to, give like people around the office like little gifts and stuff. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And like she worked in a cubicle that was adjoining this other girl's cubicle. And this other girl was like pretty Christian. And like this girl was not very Christian. I think she told me that she, worshiped the Satanic Church. Whether that was true or not, I don't know.
Okay.
But anyway, she started putting posters onto like there was a glass that separated the cubicles, and she started putting posters of like the devil and these like burning sheep on that glass, but she'd face it so it would look into the other girl's cubicle. So if you look from the girl's cubicle that's posting it, you can't see it, but if you look in the other girl's cubicle, she could see it.
Oh, she's targeting it.
Yeah, and I was like, what's going on here? And she's like, oh, like this is religious stuff. I'm like, why is it facing the other way? So, oh, well, sorry, I just put it like that by accident, whatever. And I'm like, okay, you need to take this crap down. Like, so the girl feels like you're harassing her. And like later on, she started going through people's desks when they weren't there. So I confronted her about that. And I'm like, what is it? 'Cause we have video cameras in the office. You're like, oh, I gave them these gifts. And I'm like trying to take it back now because we're not friends anymore. And I'm like, that doesn't give you the right to rifle through their stuff when they're not here. So that was kind of the final straw. I terminated her at that point. And then she like marched into my office and she's like, you either need to pay me severance or I'm going to sue you. And I'm like, for what? And she's like, because I'm non-binary, I feel like you're discriminating against me. I'm discriminating. I'm like, I have you on video rifling through people's desks. Like, this is wild. So anyways, I ended up paying her, a couple grand because I was just like, it's better than fighting off a lawsuit for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And then, we had like security escort her out of the office. And I guess she forgot something back in the office, and she like made some threats that, she was going to come back and, I don't know. I don't remember what she said. Something that we were like, we should probably lock the doors on the way out. So she tried to come back to get her stuff. She noticed the door was locked. So she started trying to kick in the door to our office. And we ended up having to like call the cops on her. And it was just wild.
Wow.
So that was a unpleasant experience.
I'm sorry you went through that, but I'm glad you caught it soon. How long were they at the firm?
She was probably there for like 6 months or so. Like feel like for the first 3, like again, she was a great employee, and then something happened. It just slowly started to get worse and worse.
Wow.
So
challenging.
Yeah.
So aside from that, after you kind of started using your SOPs and empowering your team to leverage them, have you noticed a significant increase in like employee efficiency and ability to kind of delegate better, or what are the biggest things you notice from the SOPs?
Yeah, I mean, I think better efficiency, just clearer work processes. They know exactly what they're supposed to do. There's a lot more uniformity among their work. So, they're all doing things kind of the same versus before it was, hey, like this team leader wants to do it this way. This team leader wants to do it that way. This team leader wants to do it a completely different way. This way, it's, very uniform. All the teams are doing the exact same thing. They follow the same outline. They're adding the same information. So it's much easier to track them. It's much easier to kind of tell them like, hey, you're not doing this right. Go look at this document. It'll tell you exactly how to do that.
Yeah, that's super cool. Again, time worth and well spent to be able to, benefit off for years.
Yeah. No, and it takes, a ton of time. Even now, I'm still adding things, on a weekly or monthly basis. Cause, something new will come up and I'm like, oh, hey, we need to add this to it. Or, hey, we need to add this to it. There's always things that you're like, okay, I can improve on this. I can make this cleaner, clearer, whatever it may be.
Yeah. You're a very good employer. I've spoken to people just can't wait to get rid of some.
I need to get more on that level because it's like I feel bad, but I think I could grow my business a lot quicker if I was just a little bit more cutthroat to be all right. We're gonna replace half of you with software. Goodbye.
Do you think AI could ever replace lawyers?
In some respects, yes. I don't think 100%. I don't think an AI is ever going to go to court and present a case in front of a jury. Or I don't think an AI will, take a deposition. At least maybe not in our lifetime. But I think a lot of the written work, like the motions, the discovery, all that stuff, I think an AI can absolutely replace us.
Yeah. I'd be worried about the lawyer that has that as their like primary role, writing motions and such. I think they need to revisit their skill sets a little bit.
Yeah.
That's what it's ultimately like seeming to me. Like, again, going back to the concept of getting uncomfortable and getting comfortable with it. You have to, as a professional, no matter where you are, you have to get uncomfortable and you have to find ways to adapt to this change. I don't see any, in the near future, if an employee or anybody working in modern day, especially in the legal industry, the accounting industry, if you're not getting yourself versed with AI, I think you're going to fall behind and you potentially be struggling finding jobs.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it's crazy how far it's come, like I remember back when I started, if we'd get a medical record, hospital visit where we'd have to summarize it on this treatment date, this is what the client did, this is what the doctor said, this was the cost, this is the next date. And, sometimes these documents would be thousands and thousands of pages because you're looking at 5-10 years of medical records. Now there's like AI that you can upload this to and it'll summarize that medical record for you in like a couple minutes. And I'm like, well, it used to take me weeks or sometimes even months if it's really voluminous. Now it can be done in a few minutes just by upload, be like, summarize this for me. And it's crazy and it's pretty good. It's not 100%, but it's probably like 80%, then you just go in there kind of, fill in the cracks.
Wow. That's nuts. I'm excited to see what the next few years hold. It's a little scary.
Yeah.
But it seems like Jeff, you're probably ahead of the game for most of the, attorneys that I work with. And I'm looking forward to seeing the progress and how you continue to implement AI and some of the tools and collaborating with you both in the accounting side and beyond and what you do. But thanks for joining, man.
Yeah, thanks
It's been
for
an
having
absolute
me.
pleasure. Hope you come back soon.
Dude, absolutely.
Thanks.
All right.